What's up? This is Rutger from Chartmetric. Welcome to Emerge. Today we're giving you a data-driven approach to growing your audience across digital platforms, so that's streaming, social media, and hopefully in real life, both legitimately and organically. Data-driven decision-making might sound fancy, but we do it every day, even if we don't realize it. So if you are exercising and you're counting your mileage or your calories burned or even your speed and you're adjusting accordingly to hit your goals, that's a data-driven decision. If you are tracking how much you're spending on lunch every week and you're adjusting how much you're ordering or what restaurants you're going to every day to stay under budget, also data-driven decision. And again, to be clear, this is just when it comes to growing your audience and extending the reach of your music on streaming and social media platforms, not in the act of creation itself. Let's dig in. Before you do anything, it's important to get an idea about what platforms and what metrics are going to be important for you as an artist, so you can set those goals and those benchmarks, and so you know how to measure your progress. To give you an idea of what this looks like, I've pulled up my friend's band, The Gloomies. One, because I want to embarrass him, and two, because I think his band serves as the perfect example of an independent or emerging artist who could really benefit from some data-driven marketing decisions. As is likely the case for many artists, especially with Western audiences, Spotify is likely the de facto target platform for making these data-driven improvements. But there are other platforms that are also important for growing your audience, both overall and also because those platforms can have follow-on effects to DSPs like Spotify. Spotify is arguably their best performing platform, as you can see by the summary metrics on the left-hand side right here. So you can see they have 5.2 thousand Spotify followers, 22.1 thousand monthly listeners. Their popularity is 30 out of 100, and these blue numbers to the right of those metrics, by the way, are the rankings across, all of the artists in our database, which is more than 3 million. So they're in the top, 100,000 in terms of follower metrics. Below that, we have playlist reach, which is based on the follower counts for every playlist that they are added to. So it's an aggregation of all of those playlist followers. And then fan conversion rate is really the ratio between monthly listeners to followers. So how many monthly listeners are you actually converting to followers? And it's the same idea with playlist reach to followers ratio. However, you can see on Pandora, for instance, their metrics say NA or not applicable. And this is likely because their music isn't on Pandora. Why this is important, or could be important for them, is because Pandora is only located in the US. So it serves an American audience pretty much exclusively. And considering their demographics are likely to be Western and especially American, since they are American, this could be an important platform for them, especially on the discovery front, because Pandora is largely radio driven. That's one of their DSP differentiators. It's sort of like a passive streaming experience. They do have, the active paid premium tier model, but what really sets them apart and how they've created such big brand recognition in the United States is because of this algorithmic radio and passive listening experience. All right, so if we want to get a more in-depth view of their metrics from that summary section, we can look at these fan metric charts. So you can see how their Spotify followers have changed over time. Right now we're looking at the 3-month time interval, but you can extend this to all time. And for our data, that goes back, at least for them, until July 2017. And you can see their follower count has just steadily increased, which is generally going to be the case for most artists. What will be a bit more volatile is monthly listeners, and you can see that in the charts here. So this is going to be driven by track releases and playlist ads. So anytime their track is added to a playlist, it's going to bump that monthly listener count up because of the playlist reach or the follower count of all of these playlists that their track is going to be added to. So this will change a lot over time. And really what you want to look for is a general upward trend. For independent and emerging artists, it's likely to be all over the place. But if you do set these benchmarks and you have a regular release schedule, you should be able to make the trend line a little more consistent in terms of increasing growth. As we scroll down on this fan metrics section, you'll see more platforms, both DSPs and also social media, so Instagram, YouTube. We also have Deezer and SoundCloud. So you can see for them, only 55 followers on Deezer, and while the trend has been on an upward trajectory since 2018, generally speaking, they're seeing zero daily change in their fan count on Deezer. One way we can figure out whether this is an important platform for them to target and improve is knowing a little bit about what customers Deezer serves, and also checking out their audience demographics and geography. So you can see that all of these cities are American. So Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Dallas, and Seattle. And Deezer's target audience is mostly in Europe. They're a Paris-based streaming platform. And they also do really strongly in Latin American markets. So chances are Deezer is not going to be a target platform for the Gloomies. All right, we've got an idea of fan metrics. Let's look at playlists, which will give us more insight into how the band is doing on DSPs. So you can see this Spotify playlist evolution will show you the playlist count and the playlist reach over time. And again, we can extend this to all time, and we'll be able to see historical data from 2019 onward for this band. And you can see that their playlist count is trending upward with particularly important spikes around July 2020 and then recently, actually, in April 2021. You can also change what kinds of playlists you're looking at. So right now we're looking at total playlist count, total playlist reach. So this includes the editorial playlists that Spotify curates and also the user-generated playlists, or the non-editorial playlists. And you can use this as a marketing angle to get press, so write-ups and blogs and stuff, and that in turn should theoretically influence the data at which Spotify is looking to make their editorial decisions. All right, so let's turn back to fan metrics and talk about social media. A lot of bands will try to hop on every platform to try to reach as many people as possible, but in the end, they really just end up spreading themselves too thin. Instagram, for the Gloomies, is unsurprisingly their best performing social platform. And part of that is just baked into Instagram itself, in that it's the biggest platform for music marketing in terms of it has a Spotify integration where you can share, tracks to your story. And a lot of bands use it, and artists use Instagram to communicate with their fans or to sort of promote their own brand. It's no different with the Gloomies. So if we scroll down to their Instagram followers, you can see that they have almost 1,400 followers. And there was this uptick that happened right around September 2019. And they went up until April of last year, and it's sort of been flatlining since then. Could be because of the pandemic. They haven't been able to play shows, so this could be a real factor in terms of how many followers they're gaining on Instagram and how they're able to engage their audience. So with that, let's look at how they are engaging their audience. So we can click back to audience and go down to their Instagram audience analytics, and you can see in the right-hand corner their engagement rate, 7.63%. That's pretty good, actually. Most engagement rates for social media are going to be pretty low, like definitely single digits. Anything higher than like 5% is pretty darn good. And if you get into the double digits, that's incredible. They're gaining around 100 likes per post and around 4 comments per post. Audience, gender, and age breakdown skews slightly more male than female, and their age skew is largely in the 25 to 34-year-old range, but females that are in the 18 to 24 age range outperform males in that same age range. So their best performing audiences are in this larger sort of 18 to 34 bracket. All right, so let's hop back up to our social stats to check out other platforms for them. So some of the obvious ones, Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is going to be less important for them and for American audiences, especially in the indie genre, just because there are less and less people and younger people with those preferences using Facebook. So you can probably sort of ignore it for them. Twitter is going to be similar for an indie band, unless they have a really sort of quick wit and they're really good with like pithy tweets. It's probably not going to be a good platform for them. Twitter is really driven by that sort of witty, comedic, short form text, and it doesn't so much lend itself to an indie band. So they can probably ignore that platform, at least for the time being. So this is all predicated on the fact that this is an independent, emerging artist, and you want to allocate your resources in the most efficient way, considering that most indie and emerging acts don't really have a lot of resources. So you want to optimize where you're putting your energy, essentially. If we scroll back up to YouTube, though, this could be a really important platform for them. They're a band and they do really well with live performance, and you can see actually that their Bandsintown trackers are pretty substantial. So YouTube could be a platform if they were to do content that featured like live performances, for example, to sort of supplement their live shows. Like maybe if they don't have a show booked for a while, they could do a YouTube, session or something on their own channel. Maybe even release covers. That could be a really important platform for them. And especially if they're wanting to expand their audience from just the Western American audience, because YouTube is technically the biggest streaming platform in the world, because it's global. Everybody pretty much has access to it all over the world, and it's really easy to use. You just type in the artist or the track you're looking to listen to, and you just watch and listen. There's no sort of premium subscription fee. So this could be a really important platform for them, especially because they have a lot of YouTube channel views already. So they could really work on capitalizing on that by engaging their subscribers and growing their subscribers on that channel, because almost 100,000 channel views and only 329 subscribers is not a great conversion rate. So they could really up their subscriber count to really engage that audience, which might have some crossover with people who would want to see them live potentially, but aren't in the market where they're touring. So this could be a really important digital platform to supplement, again, that live aspect in a market that is not the United States. All right, so there you have it. Since they're already doing pretty well on Spotify relative to other platforms, the Gloomies should start prioritizing platforms like Apple Music, Instagram, and YouTube a bit more, which should ultimately still help raise their Spotify profile insofar as Spotify is largely data-driven itself. So a lot of their editorial playlists will bring in external data and internal data. It's a little bit of a black box in terms of how exactly it works, but there are some indications that good performance on other digital platforms will have some impact on Spotify's editorial playlist decisions. It couldn't hurt for them to get on Pandora as well, since there isn't really a lot of upkeep for that. You just go through the Pandora submission process, which you can Google. Should be the Pandora artist marketing platform that you can do it through, which Pandora is really doubling down on right now. And the rest, unless they get signed to a big label or hire a well-equipped marketing team with a really big budget, really shouldn't be a focus for them right now. Because again, you want to optimize your resource allocation so that you're being efficient with how you're engaging with your fans and growing your audience. All right, so now that you know what targets to focus on, you can customize your artist page to really drill down to the metrics that you want to pay attention to on those target platforms. So if we take the Gloomies artist page as an example again, there's this personalize option here. And if you click that, it'll bring up all of these different sections that you have on your artist page in Chartmetric, and you can check which ones you want to see and uncheck which ones you don't want to see. So if you don't care about charts because you're not looking to hit the charts or anything, take that off. If you don't care about radio because you're all about, streaming, you can totally take that off as well. And another way you can customize this, so you're only looking at what you want to see, is if we scroll down or click the social section again, there's this chart configuration option. So you can click that button and it'll bring up another customization option where you can limit the number of charts you want to see and the types of charts that you're shown. So if you don't care about Boomplay because you're not looking to grow your, say, West African market share, for example, you can totally take that off. If you don't care about SoundCloud or Facebook or Twitter, you can totally take those off as well. And so in this case, we could just limit it to Spotify, potentially Pandora, Instagram, YouTube, and Bandsintown, really. And that should be the extent of what we want to see. Let's talk about those metrics for the Gloomies in particular, though. From a playlist perspective, again, if we just go to this playlist section here, not only can you see the playlist counts and playlist reach, but you'll also be able to see what playlists you've been added to and what tracks have been added to those playlists. Again, Spotify is probably the dominant platform here, but if we scroll down to look at, say, Apple, You can filter by playlist type. And with Apple, because they're pretty private about their data, they don't publish follower or like counts for playlists. So basically the main metric here you're looking at is playlist count and what type of playlist you've been added to. If you want to see the indie playlists or playlists curated by indie curators, also known as non-editorial playlists, you can do that as well. So you can see like Urban Outfitters, for example, has added them to their playlist, which is really cool because you can also use that as a sort of press point, and you can also leverage that from a brand partnership perspective. We've covered playlists a bit. Let's go to audience again, because we want to look at those Instagram metrics again. We've talked about this a little bit, but there is also fan location. So you can see, where you are gaining fans around the world. So for the Gloomies, for instance, obviously the United States is most important for them, but you can see some market share in the UK as well, and Mexico and Canada. So those could be, especially from an advertising perspective, those could be good markets to target next, because obviously you have some interest there that you can capitalize on and promote yourself even more. We talked about audience and age, but you can also get some sense of how multicultural your audience is, both from a follower perspective and from a like perspective. So you can see who is engaging with your content that is not necessarily following you, and then who is actually following you. If we scroll down a bit, and again, this goes to the advertising side of things, you can see your audience brand affinity as well. So no surprise that for the Gloomies, their audience interests are in Spotify and Apple Music, which is probably where they listen to this band, but also Coachella and Vans. So Vans, another, brand partnership possibility, as we discussed with Urban Outfitters. But Coachella, there could be an opportunity there for, more festival booking once, touring opens back up again. You can also get a sense for what kinds of interests your audience has. So in this case, pretty artsy audience, and that can sort of determine how you're engaging with your audience. So if you know what they're interested in, you know what's going to work and what's not going to work a little better. And then you can also get a sense for notable followers, maybe do some kind of collaboration in a creative sense or something. You also have this indie label, Top Shelf Records, which is based in San Diego, and maybe that's an opportunity to start a signing conversation, for example. So if we scroll back up to the social section of your artist page and we zero in on YouTube again, you can see that there's a lot of data missing, especially, even just in the last 3 months. And that's because their URL wasn't linked to their artist profile until April 22nd, unfortunately. So we're only seeing data from that point forward. Moral of that story is make sure all of your data and URLs are up to date so you can start tracking your trends as early as possible. And if the Gloomies were to add their music to Pandora, they'd be able to see a number of different metrics as well, including stream counts, in addition to monthly listeners and radio station ads. So the benefit of being able to track all of your data and trends in one place is that you can see how you're doing over time across your target platforms and metrics. And then you can implement benchmarking, which means setting ambitious but realistic goals for yourself to keep you motivated and growing. And you want to be incremental about this. For the Gloomies, that might involve making sure their 7-day change in follower growth on Instagram hits 1% every week this month, 2% every week next month and 3% every week the following month to really get that good growth trajectory. Since their Apple Music playlist count has been at 2 for about 2 years, their benchmark might be hitting 3 next month, 4 the following month, 5 the month after that. And that's where our playlist tab can really come in handy for targeting playlists. On YouTube, again, we'll just have to wait some time to pass for their trends to emerge, but you can still set important benchmarks there. And all this is not to say, by the way, that they shouldn't also be setting goals on Spotify. So their Spotify popularity is it's not an all-time low, but it is pretty low. So they'll want to see what they were doing in, for instance, February 2020 when they hit their all-time high in popularity, or even October 2017 that helped them get their highest Spotify popularity scores. And then they'll want to set targets. So since their all-time high was around 34, 35, and their popularity is at 30 right now, maybe aim for, one notch a month. So 31 popularity this month, 32 popularity next month. Or you can be even more ambitious than that and aim for 2 notches. These are the sorts of data-driven decisions that you can make. If you're not meeting the more ambitious increments, you can scale back a little bit. But just as long as you're always pushing yourself and always striving to hit those goals, that will really encourage growth for your audience and for your music in general. As usual, we want to remind you that you should never prioritize marketing and data over the fulfillment of your artistic vision. The music comes first, and the best growth comes from great art. Everything else comes after. If you are ready for that after part, you can sign up for our new artist tier, which is about the cost of a coffee per week. Both links are in the video's description below, by the way. That's it. Don't forget to throw us a like and click that subscribe button. If you want to dive even deeper, check out blog.chartmetric.com, listen to How Music Charts on your favorite podcast platform, and say hi on our socials. Until next time.